Okay, so today, welcome back to the Ice Cream Boys. This is gonna be a small little segment we do of just little snippets of stories that we've wanted to tell each other that we think are funny as fuck. So
We
I don't
call this story time with the Ice Cream Boys.
story time with the ICB Army. So this is one that's kind of probably one of the craziest experiences of my life, and this is the moose story. That's just how we'll refer to this right now. So what happened was,
And this is not referencing an ex-girlfriend or anything.
So I was like 17 or 18. This was when I was in high school. I know that we went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
What's there to do in Wyoming?
Believe it or not, Jackson Hole is beautiful. So it's like this tiny little town that's usually reserved for like whenever it hits like winter season, like it's great for skiing and stuff. But dude, it's this cute little town of like 3,000 people. You could walk around the town in a day. And we went in the spring and it was gorgeous. And I'll get to it because being there was also one of the most beautiful views I'd ever seen in my life. And I'll explain it. But so we went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And to really preface the story that I'm about to tell, the day before was very pivotal because of all the information I learned. So we went to Yellowstone National Park, which we had done before. And dude, that was one of the most legit moments of my life where I saw herds of elk and all this crazy shit. And you hear them crying and it's beautiful. And we did that when I was way younger. But when we went the second time, we were on this bus that we were going through. All we saw was a fox. It was horrible. It was like a 2-hour bus ride, and we saw
all you saw was a fox?
All we saw was a fox. We
would've
saw
asked for my
jack
money
shit.
back.
I know, right? But they're like giving us information. So they start telling us about moose, and mooses,
Musai?
Musasi, Gegard Musasi. Anyway, so they start talking to us about moose, and they're like, yeah, you know, if we see a moose, stay in the bus. They're very, very dangerous. People don't realize how large they are, and they will charge you, and they will just batter you to death. They go, if you see a female especially, you need to stay away because she'll be more protective of her kids because this is their breeding time, so the kids will be younger. Pretty much if you're in close encounter with a female, you're going to die. There's like a 3% chance you would survive. And you're like, what the fuck? And then they were like, oh yeah, and the closer they are, we were out in Yellowstone, so it wasn't too bad, but they're like, the closer they are to town, which people will occasionally see them come into town, the more dangerous they are as well, because the more people, the more aggressive and nervous they get. So that's all the information I'd gotten the day before the incident.
So they basically told you stay away from fucking mooses.
They pretty much told you if you
moose.
come into close proximity with them, there's a strong chance you're going to die. Because people think they're like cute, beautiful creatures.
No,
they're fucking wood monsters. That's what they are.
I saw a video from Canada, I guess.
Yeah.
And there was a video of a moose like walking towards traffic.
Yeah.
And it was like a full.
They don't give a fuck. Yeah.
No, this thing
they're
was
like 13 feet
huge.
tall. Yeah, and they'll like fuck up your car, and it's like you kind of just have to wait for them to move for you to like
Yeah.
drive past them. So what happened was we were staying at this little bed and breakfast. It was beautiful, and that was the first time I was really getting into working out at the time, and they had a little basement gym, and I was like, okay, cool, we'll go do that. So I started lifting, and I'd never worked out at elevation before, so I do like 2 sets, and I'm like, why am I struggling with weight that's like my warm up? And then I was like, okay, I can't do this, but I need to do something today. So there was this hill that was behind the bed and breakfast that was like almost probably like a quarter mile, pretty vertical, like very vertical. And I was like, I'll just go run it. And my dad and brother were like, you can't run that. And I'm like, you just made me especially want to run it. So it took me like 10 minutes first off to find how to get to the hill because I don't think I was supposed to be on it. I'm pretty sure it was private land. But I found like to where I could finally go up it. And I was like, I'm just going to run straight up it. No, you pretty much had to zig and zag. I slipped 3 or 4 times and slid down like 6 to 8 feet. And I was like, okay, let's go at a slightly slower pace because I might fall to my death right
the
now.
oxygen's a lot thinner up there.
Well, but how vertical this thing was.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about because you could have if I had started falling, I would have just tumbled all the way down and broken everything in my body, most likely. So I finally get up there. It takes me like 30 minutes to get to the top of this thing. I get to the top. And I'm staring out, and I'm like, wow, I can see all of Jackson Hole. And then I look back down, and I was like, I can't go down that way. I was like, how the fuck did I get up here?
Cannonball and just slide on your ass.
So I'm like, literally, I'm sitting there, and I'm going, if I try to go down with my body weight going down, I'm going to fall and die. So I call the bed and breakfast, and I'm like, how do I get down from here? And the guy goes, hold on. Okay, I see you. All right, so look, go to your left, and you're going to see a bunch of, like, $1 million houses When you see the view, you'll understand why they're $1 million. Follow that road down and it'll lead you back into town. So my legs are toast at this point. Like, I am waddling because I just ran up straight up that my legs and my ass are done. So I start like waddling over and eventually I find this road. And it's this big road that winds and it goes like very vertically down. So it's winding. And there's probably like 20 yards worth of trees in between each wind. And so I start walking down and I finally get to where you can see a clearing over the trees and the view. Because there were just these like cabins. And I was like, how are these $1 million? And I get to the break of trees and I look over the view. All to my left is a giant mountain range. Everything behind me, giant mountain range. Straight out in front of me is this flat valley with two like perfectly rectangular plateaus out in the middle, and the river. Did you watch Django Unchained?
No.
Well, in it,
I should.
Jamie, we're watching that. Yes, we're watching that together. You're gonna love it. Well, it's kind of fucked up, but you're gonna love it. Well, in it, there's this winding river that Jamie Foxx takes a bath in. That's the river I was looking at as I was looking over this valley, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, this is gorgeous. And all of a sudden I hear, it's fucking beautiful, isn't it? And I'm like, what the hell? And I look up and there's a guy on a balcony of the cabin smoking weed, just going, he goes, this makes it better. You want to look to it? I was like, I don't know you. I'm a stranger danger.
I feel like every story you have, there's a random guy trying to give you weed.
It happens frequently, and it's like so weird. So I'm like walking very slowly at this point because my legs are burnt out. And I was like, I'm fucking bored, and this view's great, but... So I call my buddy, who was my best friend at the time. We don't talk anymore, but, you know, shit happens. Yeah. So I call him, and we're talking, and as I'm, like, walking, so I'm on the upper side of one of the winds, and I'm walking, so the trees are to my right, so my phone here, and then we're talking, and then I just hear... Turn and look, and not 10 feet away from me is a moose chewing on a branch. When you see one of those fuckers 10 feet away from you, and it's crazy that I didn't like notice it at first, but when you see how big they are, you're like, oh shit. My heart jacks up probably to like 150 plus. So I'm on the phone with him and I'm looking and I just hear, hello? No antlers. And I'm like, oh fuck, it's a female. I start looking at her feet. I don't see anything yet, but I don't know if there's babies deeper in. And the entire time she's staring at me, just chomping on a branch. And I just hear, Travis, what the fuck, man? Hey, if I don't call you back in like 3 minutes, call my mom and tell her I'm dead. I just hear, what? Hang up. And I just put my phone in the pocket.
That's a great thing to tell somebody.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, because, you know, I can't be worried about the fucking phone. So I put the phone in my pocket. I'm frozen. Like, I'm like breathing heavily. And I'm just,
fear.
We're staring, her and I are staring each other in the eyes. And I'm just looking and I'm like, I don't see any babies. What if there's babies? If there's babies, she's gonna fucking kill me. She's gonna fucking kill me.
The feeling you had just a sec, like in that moment, is what every Mexican feels when they look at their mother. It's no joke.
So I'm sitting there and I start remembering everything they told me. Not 24 hours before this. If it's a female, she's most likely to fuck you up. If she's got babies, she's definitely going to fuck you up. The closer they are to town, I'm right outside of town.
They're already on edge.
They're going to be more on edge to fuck you up.
Yeah.
And I was like, if a car passes, I'm probably fucked. Because that's probably going to rile it up. And I'm in attacking distance. So I'm literally like, this is me contemplating for probably a minute straight. Because I'm just staring at her. And I'm just looking and I'm like, I don't see any babies. Okay. Cool. And she's just chomping on this branch, just staring at me. And so when you are scared you're about to get fucking murdered by a wild animal, logic goes out the window.
There is no logic.
So I start negotiating with her silently to where I just start going, swear to God, this is me. I look down and I just go, you don't fuck with me, I'm not gonna fuck with you. Let's just both go about our day, and this doesn't have to end in a bad way.
I have money,
dude. Literally, I'm like shaking, and I'm just like, you don't fuck with me, I won't fuck with you. And she's just the entire time just
She wasn't impressed. She didn't like what you were
So
saying.
I'm like, fuck. So I slowly start walking and I'm staring at her. And then I see her like head perk up a little bit and I go, and then she just, I start taking a few more steps. She just follows me as I'm like taking these steps.
Was she like moving, following you, or just with your
No,
head?
just her head following me. And so right when I get like to the curve is coming up, so I'm pretty close to the curve, and she's just like turned and looking at me, but she hasn't moved. The second I see the curve, when you get that I'm about to die scenario, fight or flight kicks in. If this is people, I'm a fight. When it's a 10-foot fucking wood monster, I'm a flight, brother. I'm a flight hard. And despite how, and literally that's part of my thing. I'm like, my dumbass just ran up a fucking vertical hill and then came face to face with a goddamn fucking moose that I'm definitely not going to be able to outrun for more than 3 seconds.
Dang.
Because they're fast as shit,
yeah,
too.
they are.
But that was the crazy thing, is how much she surprised me because they're that quiet. They can move so effortlessly through the woods that she was that quiet that she surprised me. So I get to the edge of the curve and brother, flight kicked in and I just start sprinting. Faster than I've ever probably run in my entire life. I get to the opposite side of the hill. So now the trees are like, it's more vertically up because of the wind. And I look up and she's just up there turned around looking at me just.
She probably tried to go, this bitch.
So I get away and I like took a picture and you could just see her brown outline. My parents didn't believe me. First off, when I got back to the bed and breakfast, I'm like, it's right there. I have a picture of it, but I had a flip phone back then.
Oh.
Yeah, so it wasn't a good picture. But I swear to fucking God, lie detector says to me, I don't give a shit. This fucking happened. And I literally, as I'm leaving, I'm like, no one's gonna believe this fucking happened. But it's so funny because when I get to the bottom, she's just looking down on me like, I could have fucked you up. I could have beat your ass.
I could have had you for
and
breakfast.
in my head, like when I hung up the phone on my buddy, I literally thought, this is how I'm gonna die. People at my funeral are gonna be, did you hear how St. John got killed? Yeah, he got his ass stomped down by a female moose. What a bitch. And I was like, this is how I'm gonna die.
Is there a
And this
word
is
for a
what-
female moose?
A cow. Because the male mooses are bulls. She's a cow. Cow
that-
moose.
I'm about to look it up.
I promise you it's a cow moose. So
You almost got fucked up by a cow.
I almost got fucked up by a cow moose. Yeah. And that was like one of the single most terrifying moments of my entire life. Just because, and it was so crazy that I don't know if it's just because I didn't freak the fuck out or what, that she left me alone. Cause dude, that close, I could smell her and I was like, I don't see how I'm not. Was
You're
I
right.
right? Cow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
the males are,
it was just with that close. All the information I've been given the day before. And then the next day I come in proximity with a moose and I'm that close. Thank God she didn't have babies. She would have just killed me.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably wouldn't have known because I didn't even notice her until I was like right next to her. And yeah, that was just pants shittingly terrifying. And I think the only reason I got away is because I stayed calm. Or I didn't flip fucking shit and just run
I would have
when I got right there.
Honestly. No, I would not have. I would have ran my ass.
Bro, that's a deer mixed with an elk mixed with fucking steroids and Brock Lesnar. That thing would fucking rape the shit out of me if it felt like it.
That's Brock Lesnar with a underbite or something.
Yeah, basically. So, yeah. So if you didn't know, I almost got killed by a moose, and that is the moose story.